The first flight from Germany under the quarantine-free Vaccinated Travel Lane scheme has landed in Singapore.
For more, we're joined by Brendan Sobie, independent analyst and consultant at Sobie Aviation. Brendan, how does demand for vaccinated travel lanes to Singapore compare to other destinations like Phuket's travel sandbox?
Well, demand is very low initially. So far, in terms of visitors from Germany, only about 600 have applied to enter Singapore in the first month. And the Phuket sandbox is attracting a couple of thousand passengers a week, which is still a modest figure given the normal size of the Phuket market. But it's really very early days for both schemes. There's very limited travel into Asia due to all the border restrictions and closures and quarantine requirements. And this just represents the first opportunity for people to come to Singapore as visitors, as well as the first opportunity for two-way quarantine-free travel for Singapore residents.
Brendan, still early days, as you've mentioned, but how fast can we realistically expect that, demand to pick up, considering there's increased cost and inconvenience to the travelers?
It's going to be very slow. Not only because of the demand, but because of this very small supply. There's only 7 flights a week being permitted at this point from Germany to Singapore under this vaccinated travel lane. That's only 2,000 passengers a week coming from Germany at the most. And today there was just 100 passengers. The load factor on the first flight was less than 40%. And looking at the bookings so far and the relatively lukewarm demand, even those 2,000 seats that are available are not going to be filled in at least an initial period. So it's going to be very small and insignificant from a volume perspective, and it won't have any bearing really on a recovery for the aviation or travel sectors. However, it's a positive first step, a baby step, and hopefully it will be followed by more in the months ahead, and eventually we'll see a significant volume of traffic return to Singapore over time, but it will take a long time.
Brendan, the lukewarm demand notwithstanding, it is important to some degree because perhaps more significantly, this has to do with trust, perhaps, with confidence, building that in the travel sector once again. How far do you think that might be the case for the aviation sector, that need to build that confidence again?
Yeah, that's part of it. In terms of inbound demand, which is from Germany, which I was just mentioning, only 600 people from Germany have so far applied to come to Singapore. That's really about Singapore's competitiveness as a destination. Right now, lots of other parts of the world are open. So if you're sitting in Germany, you have choices to go within Europe or in other regions like the Caribbean, Middle East, Africa, without any issues, without having to be tested 4 times. Without the cost and the inconvenience of this particular scheme. So that's the issue going in that direction. Coming out from Singapore, the outbound segment, I think a lot of people are just waiting and to see the number of tests and the inconvenience is certainly a factor. And the trust is a factor as well as the limited number of destinations. So a lot of people are waiting to see, what other destinations open up and if the inconvenience factor reduces over time, and so right now that's really I think the driver in terms of outbound demand. While inbound demand, like I was mentioning, is really about Singapore's inability to compete as a destination given the current situation.
And Brendan, what about budget airlines? Is it even a sustainable business model? Like their chance of survival?
Budget airlines, as well as full-service airlines. Right now they're facing a very challenging time. In Singapore and in the overall Asia region due to the continued border closures and restrictions. So traffic in Singapore is only 3% normal, 3% of pre-COVID levels. That is, so 97% down. And actually, for the budget airlines, it's a little bit more than that because the budget airlines rely on regional travel. While what we're seeing right now is more opportunity, albeit very limited right now, for long-haul travel, because right now the situation regionally is more severe in terms of the COVID restrictions on travel and the Delta variant. But over time, budget airlines, will come back just like the full-service airlines. For this particular vaccinated travel lane, it's just Singapore Airlines and Lufthansa. Hopefully, Scoot will have the chance to also operate flights to Berlin. Unfortunately, the number of destinations was limited, and the number of flights is limited in this first phase. But hopefully, there'll be more destinations in Germany as well as in other destinations that come into play over the next several weeks or months, and that will include budget airlines as well as full-service airlines.
And Brendan, just as these vaccinated travel lanes have begun, Singapore has retightened its COVID measures. It's still going ahead with that travel lane experiment nonetheless. What impact do you anticipate that might have?
I don't think there'll be that much impact because, again, the number of flights is so small. The amount of demand for these flights, regardless of the situation domestically in Singapore, is very small. A lot of the passengers who are actually going on these flights are expats and who happen to be German. That it's an opportunity for them to go home, as well as an opportunity for people in Germany to come to Singapore who have family in Singapore. The VFR, which is the visiting friends and family segment, that's going to be most of the travelers anyway. So for those people who have family in Singapore, they can still come, even if restrictions tighten here in Singapore. I think, but the overall concern about the current direction of the restrictions or potential direction of the restrictions going forward is how will that impact the further opening of the borders? Clearly, for now, there won't be a further opening of the borders. We'll have to wait and see how this particular pilot scheme with Germany works, and how many cases get imported as a result of it. I think the Ministry of Health will be looking very closely at that. How many people adhere to the rules, particularly the rule related to staying in Germany and not going to any other countries in Europe. So they'll be looking at that. So it'll be some time before the scheme gets extended. And I guess the concern would be if restrictions are going the opposite direction here in Singapore, then it'll take even longer to open this scheme up to other countries. So that's the general rhetoric. It's not very positive right now from that perspective, but I hope eventually we'll get through that and we'll become an endemic society, and there'll be opportunities to travel again to a lot bigger range of destinations and with less inconvenience. And the sooner that happens, the better, obviously, for the aviation and travel industries, which remain extremely impacted. And really, at this point, there is no recovery for them. This scheme is not a significant development for them. But the symbolism of this first step is important, and hopefully, again, we'll get there and we'll eventually have a recovery of the travel and aviation sectors. Most likely not until next year, however.
Well, lots of waiting and seeing for now. Thanks very much for staying up for this interview. Brendan Sobie, the independent analyst and consultant at Sobie Aviation.